She's the award-winning national security border security reporter for TV, radio, and the print media. And Kimberly is also the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. She is a TV correspondent, CW6 News San Diego, also One America News Network. The website is thekdreport.com, thekdreport.com. And by the way, she streams live right now, periscope.com and Facebook, and later on YouTube. Hey, Kimberly, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How about yourself, Chuck?
Pretty good. Boy, a lot going on, I'll tell you. Seems like everybody's talking about Syria.
Yeah,
and,
I kind of thought.
You are going to put on a comparison today.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, obviously my beat's usually the Middle East, national security, and foreign policy. But, watching media and pundits completely go off the rails on this Syria, leaving boots on the ground in Syria, I just thought it was odd. It's kind of like when the Democrats are fighting for, reforming, firearm and allowing citizens to protect themselves. Well, they don't seem to care too much about what goes on in Chicago and LA and that's why I said Baltimore. They don't care about those places. They're worried about your own personal firearms. So I thought this would be the best way to go about doing a comparison to see how ludicrous these lawmakers and pundits on TV actually are.
Well, and I'll tell you, I'm looking at your report, that came in early this morning. And when you start looking at firearms and different places, different parts of the world, you don't have to go too far, because we have got a little place just south of the United States. It's called Mexico.
Yeah. Well, this is what I find. I mean, obviously, Mexico and Canada are our neighbors, and they're obviously really big trade partners for our country. So that means, goods and services coming across the board, north and south borders on this front. So when you start diving into numbers, and we've all heard that the murder rates are increasing in Mexico, but over the last month, it's gotten really, really bad. And we've seen, 12 police officers ambushed. You've seen last weekend, over the weekend, you saw 8 military soldiers killed. It was an 8-hour siege that went on in this town in Culiacan, and that the cartels in essence were armed better than the military of Mexico, and that the attack was planned out so carefully, and that they went in, they did things that militaries would do. They blocked the exit so nobody could get in or out of the perimeter that they wanted. They went on automatic fire, going completely across the town. There were more than a dozen attacks, and finally, after 8 hours, the president of Mexico obviously said, we can't continue to do this, so we are going to release El Chapo's son. We're sorry if there was any inconvenience for you cartel members, but can you please stop killing us? That's going on south of our border. And the numbers we're talking about, Chuck, this, we talk about this. Right now in Mexico, more than 23,000 people have died in Mexico. 23,000. Compare that to Syria, which is an active civil war with lots of Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, terrorists running around. And you compare those numbers, 17,000 people have been killed so far this year in Syria. So let's, do the math here. I know I'm blonde, but let's do the math. Why are our lawmakers not screaming, going, wait a minute, we need to put some boots down south of the border so we can protect Mexico from the siege of these, in essence, terrorists. These drug cartels are acting in terroristic manners. So why are we not worried about what's going on south of the border? I think you and I have an inkling as to what it is, but why are they not talking about this?
Well, I don't know. I can tell you that I don't think the Democrats will be talking about it because, their stance on gun control in America. But, it could also bring up sore points, a thing called fast and furious. Mm-hmm. I don't think today we know how many guns
No.
the Obama administration, and Eric Holder on Fast and Furious sent into Mexico.
Yeah. And those weapons have like a 75-year shelf life, meaning within 75 years, they will be used in a commission of a crime. And those are stats that, scientists and mathematicians come up with. So, I mean, those guns are out there. It's quite possible they were used the last couple weeks in Mexico.
Now, would you go back a moment on El Chapo,
Mm-hmm.
And tell the listeners about why they let the sons go?
Yeah, well, the United States obviously worked with Mexican government on this. They finally captured El Chapo, and he was the face, not the brains, but he was the face of the Sinaloa cartel. And, after being caught, doing a little jail time, escaping, repeat, rinse, repeat again, doing that for several times, the U.S. government finally convinced Mexico the only way to see justice was to, extradite El Chapo to face the U.S. courtroom, in which he did. He was convicted. He's sent to Supermax. He will never be out the rest of his life. He will serve behind bars. And so that leaves the Sinaloa cartel in a little bit of a free fall zone, because they're not certain who's going to control it. But as we know, El Chapo has sons who are out there, and they are actively doing exactly what their father did. They're sticking with the family business, and they're committing all kinds of, terroristic, violent. I mean, these people are chopping the heads off people. I mean, I almost think that if you look at Mexico this last month, there's more terrorism in such a barbaric manner taking place in Mexico than there is in Syria, or even the Middle East at large right now. I mean, these people are brutal, I mean, it's just absolutely shocking to see what they're doing. They're not just simply shooting somebody dead. They're dismembering them. I mean, it's awful what's going on.
In one of the big gun battles that just happened, and I cannot remember now, but I know it's a new cartel.
Jalisco? It's a Jalisco. And when let's go back to when Vicente Fox was president in Mexico. People gave him a lot of heck about the fact that he said that, look, I'm not endorsing the cartels, but I'm just, we have an arrangement that, look, you guys do what you're going to do with all your other drug cartel buddies and members and such, but you're going to stay away from the tourist areas. You're not going to go after government officials and things of that nature. So that was fine. They all got along, and they just fought over those, trafficking routes that go north to get into the United States. That was just a typical thing. Then, we have two presidents of Mexico saying we're going to go after the drug cartels, and operations like Los Zetas come up, and they're basically retired military that actually got a lot of training from the United States. This could sound familiar what's going on in the Middle East, if we all remember that as well. So I mean, you're seeing cartels saying, what, we don't care about the tourists. We're going to go out and we're going to do this in Cancun. We're going to do this in Cabo San Lucas, Acapulco, all of these areas that were, as a gentleman, and I said gentleman agreement, that they just stayed away from that stuff. And they now they're not doing that. Everything is fair season,
Wide open.
It is.
And you mentioned also, that we have to take in consideration that Mexico is still one of our top trading partners.
When you look at this, I know that the president harps on this about Congress not doing anything about the USMCA, the new agreement to replace NAFTA, which has wrecked a lot of American jobs and manufacturing. Congress doesn't seem inclined under Nancy Pelosi to pick up that deal that where Canada wants to do it, they've signed off. Mexico wants to do it, they signed off. And in fact, under the Mexico provision, what it's going to do is have the government actually set labor laws, and the people that live in Mexico are actually going to get a pay increase. So they're going to up their hourly wages. So why are the Democrats not signing on to this? Of course, we know they don't want the president to have a win any way, shape, or form. But I think the bigger picture is that, they are failing to grasp what is going on just south of our country. And if they don't think that something like that can't happen in this country, these people have their tentacles in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, Chicago, Baltimore, Phoenix, Arizona. These countries have been, the crime rates are going up. They're not going down. These cartels are operating all over the United States. And just in time for the election, we have the Democrats out there, probably a majority of them actually saying, we want to like get back to this Second Amendment stuff. We need to take your guns because we can't own guns because we got to protect all people of the country. So we're going to take law-abiding citizens' guns. They like to hunt, or even if they just want to protect themselves. Well, how's it working out for Mexico? Because they're not allowed to own firearms. So now you have the cartels taking advantage of all the people as well as the government in Mexico south of the border. What would stop them? Do you think they'd be nice to us if they started doing that up here in America where we weren't able to own firearms any longer? Do you think they go, yeah, we're going to play by America's rules. Here we're turning in our guns to you. No, the violence would escalate, continue to escalate until the U.S. military would probably have to come in and end this. But nobody's taking this seriously. Nobody's taking this seriously.
Well, the old thing about, you got your head buried in the sand.
Yeah.
In this case, I think the Democrats are buried in the basement.
Yeah.
They don't want to do anything but work on impeachment.
Yeah.
That's their 2020 campaign. Wow, year away, over a year away. But
well, and look at this. While Congress is focusing on impeachment and that, wouldn't it behoove this country to actually look at Mexico, work some sort of public-private, organization so Americans can make Mexico go down, businesses, large corporations could go down there and help with infrastructure, build schools, and help them be Canada instead of Mexico. And, you look at these lawmakers running around talking about, we have to stay in Syria. For what? Why? We're not at war with Syria. And are we to expect that, okay, if that's the new standard for going to war and leaving boots on the ground in a country, why aren't we in Mexico? Why aren't we down there? Because there's more people dying down there, and that could actually come up here. And just, this morning I went and did Google search to see if anybody was still talking about what happened in Mexico last week and the prior week. And you go on, Google, and you look up the first 3 pages, and there's nothing new. So the media has moved on in this country. They don't want to talk about it because it's an inconvenient talking point that people are dying on a larger scale in Mexico than they are in Syria, where these people are saying we have to stay. Why do we have to stay? And if you want to stay, then like you and I've talked about for years as well, vote for war. It sits with Congress. Nancy, please bring up the vote. Let's say it. Let's do it. Go to war. You give the permission. You demand him. Instead, they have some silly proclamation that says, the president, we're chastising him. He's being really reckless by not leaving boots on the ground in Syria. It's ludicrous. If that's how they feel, then let's just vote for war, because that's what, the constitutional gives these lawmakers, is the power to start a war and give the president the authority to go to war. And if that's what they want, forget the proclamations and let's put the vote out there. And we can do right after that, we can do the impeachment vote if they want to. Let's just do it out there. Nancy, you can have it done in a day. And then we can leave our boots over in Syria because you want them there.
And all of this over there, not in Mexico, but Syria, it's all, as I understand, been happening since 9/11. That's when it first started.
Yeah. Well, the cartel, the cartels are like any other, business. If you look at it that way, the cartels, if you shut down this route, they'll figure out a new route to get across the border or under the border, which is how they get a lot of drugs here. Or, simply through the ports of entry when they throw it in with vegetables and produce and things of that nature. But when you look at, that aspect of it, they're going to change and modify their business plan as barriers, go up around, the borders, or the DEA is able to have dogs out there that can smell the drugs and whatnot. But you just have to, question too. I mean, we all talk about the fentanyl now. That's coming across the southern border. That's what for sure. It's no place else that's coming across. That's coming from Mexico via China, of course, because they don't care about the American people. They, in fact, would prefer. Yeah.
And it seems like, when Trump was making a speech a long time ago about, I think he said 11,000 a day are dying, opioid crisis, more than were killed in Vietnam daily.
Yeah.
But isn't it amazing how even staggering facts like that sometimes just don't quite get into American minds, and especially, in my opinion, they don't get into those Democratic critters. We're going to take a break and continue with Kimberly Dvorak. I don't know if I'm sure you did, because you're a news hound, sort of. Well, you don't want to call her a hound, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's reverse discrimination.
When he was in Dallas, the president, and he was talking about, what I should have done was say, I don't want a wall. I don't want a wall. I don't want a wall. He said they would build it so damn fast you wouldn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
The Democrats.
Yeah.
Gotta have one. That's what it's become.
Yeah. Well, I know that we just have a few short minutes here, but I'd kind of like to end this segment, talking about, the Fallujah of the Rio Grande down south of the border, what's going on, and if things can actually escalate to, further degree, which there has no signs that this is going to stop. Two scenarios here. First, this could actually turn itself by the Sinaloa Cartel's ability to have both of El Chapo's sons released from custody. That could lend itself to something like a Pablo Escobar, where you start seeing escalating attacks on government officials, bombings of government buildings, and judges shot down and killed in broad daylight, those kinds of things. That's one scenario that this could do. This could kind of, go the route as Colombia did, in which it would then require U.S. military to go down, train some troops, serve with them, maybe like what they're doing in the Middle East now. Maybe they could just shift it south of our border. It'll either lead that direction, and that's probably, people don't necessarily want to talk about, having U.S. military go down and see what this happens. But the only alternative way this will end is 100 years ago, the Mexicans fought a revolutionary war. It lasted 10 years. And that, and they've just kind of been sitting, just percolating on the edge here. They haven't gone all the way into full out war, but since it happened 100 years ago, it's quite possible that the government will say, well, we're not going to let the cartels run the country. And the cartels are going to say, well, we're better trained, we're better armed, and we have a lot more to gain from knocking you out of power. So either scenario is bad for the United States, and hopefully lawmakers will wake up from their wokeness and do something to help our neighbor, our ally, and our, one of our biggest trading partners, Mexico, so they can not go to civil war and have cartels run the country, and they don't need to go to war amongst themselves, which would completely collapse their economy. So there's really two solutions, and it's, either one is not good for the United States. So I'm hoping that people, will continue to talk about what's going on in Mexico, because it's worth talking about for sure.
And I'll tell you, Kimberly, real quick, a long time ago, and I wish I could give you the exact year, the United States decided we're going to send some people in there to the Mexico police, and we're going to train them and teach them how to, be a lot better and all these different things they can use.
Yeah.
And you probably know this, but I guess about 80% of them all went over to the cartel because they were getting paid more.
Yeah. That's how backfired. Yeah, but that's how the Los Zetas, cartel was formed. Primarily from that. We trained them, we gave them weapons, they know how to use it, and now they're implementing it across the country.
Had a funny feeling the world famous Kimberly Dvorak would know exactly, and she did. Hey, thank you very much. Look forward to our next visit.
All right.
Kimberly Dvorak. All right, you spell that DVORAK. Look for her on Facebook, Periscope.com, YouTube, and the website, thekdreport.com. That's thekdreport.com.
Thank you.